Welcome to this latest edition of ScreenDaily Talks. I am Screen's Europe and Middle East correspondent, Melanie Goodfellow. Today, we're going to be talking to 4 independent film distributors across Europe about their strategies as cinemas start reopening in their different territories following months of lockdown. We're going to be looking at the challenges they face, but also hopefully we'll be finding a few upsides and opportunities too. We have 4 great panelists, all working in the independent sector, but with very different slates and all facing a very different set of circumstances. From the UK, we have Hamish Moseley, who's Managing Director, UK and Ireland for Altitude Media Group, which is both a production and distribution company, handling its own titles as well as third-party films. Our second panelist is Margherita Chiti, who is a partner and general manager at leading Italian art house distributor Teodora Film Distribuzioni. Then from Spain, we have Enrique Gonzalez Kuhn, the founding chief of Madrid-based distributor Caramel Films. And then finally, but by no means least, we're joined by Alexis, the CEO of Paris-based distributor Condor. So in the first part of the discussion, we'll get each panelist to give like a brief outline of the situation in their territories and their plans for the next few months. And without spending too much time looking backwards, we will look a little bit at what happened at the beginning of the pandemic because it's influencing how distributors are operating now. And then in the second half of the discussion, we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. So you can leave your questions in the Q&A box, but not in the chat room. And we'll be fielding those and putting them to the panelists. So to start with, I'd just like to go to Hamish, really, just to sort of set the scene about what's happening in all the different territories. Thank you for joining the discussion, Hamish. I know you're really busy at the moment because you've got Stage Mother coming out in the UK tomorrow, I believe.
We have, yeah.
And you were one of the first distributors to put a film back into cinemas in the UK with Blackwater Abyss. And then after that, you could have one of the biggest US releases of the summer in the UK with Unhinged, the road rage thriller. So I was just wanted to get a sense from you about what's going on in the UK, some idea of how many cinemas are now open. I mean, have you found screens for Stage Mother? And what's your sense about the audiences?
So slowly, the cinemas were permitted to open at the start of July, and we're getting more and more cinemas open every week. And obviously we're looking after the UK and Ireland, so within that England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And within that, those countries, they all have their different rules and regulations and different start times, which has its own challenges. But as it stands, last weekend, we had 151 cinemas open in the UK. Not all of them open for 7 days by any means. And they're opening more and more every week. And so that translates to about, just under 20% of the total footprint of cinemas that were open this time last year when The Lion King opened. Just about 820 cinemas or something like that. Obviously the number fluctuates anyway. So that's where we are. We're hoping more and more cinemas are coming on board. So we opened Stage Mother this weekend in approximately 120 cinemas. We opened Blackwater Abyss 2 weeks ago in 90 cinemas, and we're adding more and more every week.
And what's your sense? I mean, it's very difficult with just one title so far, but in terms of audiences, do you feel like people want to come back to the cinemas, or are they still too scared to go into a theatre?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly challenging, as it is with anything that's outside of anybody's homes. You walk around the street, cafes, restaurants, anywhere, it's not busy. And, people are rightly cautious. I think the official lockdowns have somewhat ended, but people are still in a lockdown frame of mind. And so we're in a strange transition period, and we don't know what we're transitioning to. So it's a absolutely bizarre and surreal period where we're starting to trade again, and we need to do business again, and we all want to return back to normality, but we don't know what normality will be or when it will be. So we're just having to find our way through it and fumble in and do the best we can. So no is the answer to your question. Of course, audiences aren't at full confidence, and there are a number of factors holding them back. Personally, society, the news, but also the pipeline of films. We need a a diverse and strong pipeline of films of all to cater to all audiences. And we need that as soon as possible. That's the only way the cinemas are going to be anywhere near back to normal trading again, I believe.
So I'd like to move on to Margherita. As I understand, the situation in Italy is also quite complicated in terms of the cinemas actually opening. I read a figure of, say, about 15% of theatres or screens currently being open, so something like that. But maybe you can fill us in and also just give us some idea of what you're planning for the next 2 or 3 months, in this, or even month, in this very complicated period.
So yes, actually the cinema theaters were able to reopen from June 15 officially, but only 15-20% did actually reopen. We have to say that in Italy, usually during summer, many theaters do close down. So they didn't decide to reopen June 15 to close down again in July. It didn't make sense. The situation here, it's more about open air cinemas. The closed cinema theaters that have reopened didn't really get new product, because the only new films that were released were already on platform since 1 month, and were Les Miserables and Bad Tales by the Di Innocenzo brothers. And so there has not been any new film opening that could work as a driving force to bring audience to the theater. We are waiting September for that, end of August. And actually it was supposed to be Tenet on August 20th. Now we don't know. And for what concerns us, we decided not to go straight to platform with our titles. We decided to wait and see what was going on. And we are testing some open air cinema avant-premiere with our French film Papi Chat. And open air cinemas do perform quite well, actually. It's an in-between condition that makes people easier to go to the cinema, because it's not in a closed house. And so we are starting slightly to go back to cinema through these events, and they're working quite well. But honestly, we have to wait and see what's to say how many theaters will actually be reopening. We have to wait September.
And when after, so Papi, so what is going to be your first release? Do you think?
The first release will be our Italian film, The Macaluso Sisters by Emma Dante. We decided to start again with an Italian film, which for several reasons, it's an easiest choice. And then Papi Chat.
Okay,
following.
And then you've got Yalda as well.
Yeah, we got Yalda as well. We got Deux by Filippo Meneghetti, and also Un Triomphe. But I wouldn't go farther than October to make any plan so far.
Just without going into too much into the controversy around it, but going back to the idea of open air screenings, there has been some sort of pushback from the industry, I believe, about open air screenings in Italy.
That's a very complicated situation, and we would need another webinar just about that. But yes, we are. There has been some controversial situation. Basically, we are trying just not to create a competition to those, as distributors, I mean, to those theaters that are trying to reopen now, both open or closed, I mean, open air or not. And so, and that are charging a ticket and struggling to survive. So some open air free cinema events create some controversial situation about that. But that's very complicated to explain in
so you want people to pay for their tickets and pay for the content rather than getting it for free, basically. But it's not, I mean, without going
I mean, we are trying to, yes, we are supporting because cinemas have been losing so much money, those cinema theaters. So we want them, I mean, they need to charge a ticket because they're not supported. And so we are trying not to create unfair competition with the free cinema events. I think that both realities can live together. We just have to find a nice balance.
A balance, yeah. Okay. So just moving on to, thank you. So moving on to Enrique. So Enrique, the situation is perhaps sort of the one territory I'm least familiar with, but it seems quite complex at the moment, because I read a report saying that 80% of cinemas had reopened at the end of June, but now there's been this small resurge of COVID. So some cinemas, I don't know, in Catalonia have had to close. So I don't know how that's impacting you, or whether you think there'll be more closures, or you can just sort of fill us in and what you're planning to do in the next month, 2 months.
The thing is that in Spain, the cinemas, most of the main chains open since 1st July. All of them are expecting big films from the studios. And the problem is that these big films doesn't come. These big films change the date every week. So at the end, what's happened is that the cinemas are open, but they don't have any movies to show except some little films. You know? So here's the problem. The main problem, as I told you before, is that Spain is a country that we depend too much on the studios film. You know, we depend 80% of the box office is from the studios, and when you have a problem like that, you don't have movies. You don't have movies because the industry can't survive with the independent sector. No. So my lesson here is that we have to bet on our national cinematography and European films to try to get this public bigger, no? Because if we depend only on the studios movies, we have the result, and the result is that nobody goes to the cinemas. So the situation was quite dark, but there is some light, some shining, and is thanks to a Spanish movie. There is a guy called Santiago Segura, that in Spain is a big filmmaker, and these movies make a lot of admissions. And this guy, Spanish guy, the Spanish movie, decide to release the movie before. So the movie will be released next week. It's a family movie, and this is important because these family movies bring 5-6 people to the theaters, not only 2. It's like 5-6, and at the end, the cinemas, the people have to see that the cinemas are safe. No, I think this movie is gonna bring a lot of people to the cinema. The people will come back again to a dark screen. They will enjoy it. They will see that it's sure that nothing happens, that you have distance between them, that people wear the mask, and they're gonna enjoy the experience. And when they enjoy the experience, it will be a word of mouth. And I am sure that thanks to this movie, people will come back. Tenet will be on the 27th of August, so that's for sure. So all our expectations are on this Spanish movie. So at the end, will be a Spanish movie that probably save the Spanish industry. No? And we are all expecting this new release next week. I'm sure that it will work, I'm sure. And when you go to the cinema, you see other posters, you see trailers, and you get again the necessity to enjoy a movie in a cinema, no? That we forget from the last 3 months. So that's why I think it's important to start with big films that people get in and to enjoy the experience of the cinema again. No?
But just, I mean, for your slate, what are you planning to put anything out in this period?
Yes, the thing is that in Berlin, I don't buy so many movies. I buy, I think, 1 or nothing films. I don't know why, but this Berlin, I don't buy so many. So I have, my first release will be the 11th September with a movie called Arab Blues.
Oh, yeah.
And after, I have the big one for me will be the Viggo Mortensen movie, Falling, that the movie will be in San Sebastian. And this for me will be the big bet, and will be the 2 October. I can't release nothing before because I have nothing. If I tell you the truth, I have nothing. If I will have something, I will do it. But right now, I have these 2 movies that I already paid. That is important. And as I told you, the first, the 11th September, and the second, the 2 October, during the San Sebastian Film Festival.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that San Sebastian for us is very important. I talk with the director every day, and the festival will be there. I hope many people from Europe will come, and for us, it will be like the reopening, no, for our films, for the independent sector.
Just going back, you mentioned that that Tenet, 27th of August for Spain. Yes. Is that something that's confirmed, or is that what everybody's saying? It's a rumor.
It's confirmed. It's confirmed. That's why they say it, and it's confirmed. I think for this film, the studios will have a different strategy. I think they're gonna release in Asia and Europe, and maybe the US later, other countries later. That's why. Yeah, yes, that's what they told to the cinemas. After it will change again, I don't know. But for me, the main challenge now is this huge Spanish film that last year. This is the second part. The first part was last year. It was a huge box office in summer, and all expectations are in this film next Wednesday. Okay. So we have to follow closely, because if this movie works, I think we are safe. But in France work, they released François Ozon, and the first day he made 70,000 admissions. That's the importance of the French cinema, their own cinemas, And they have movies like that. Yeah, they have movies like that every week. So in Spain, France are 0.5% of the box office of last year. The other countries, we are like 10, 15, 5. It's because they have a strong cinema. So
that's one of the issues I want to address in a discussion, also for the other panelists, because I do think that's a very interesting point, in fact, when you look at France, which can move over to Alexis, who I think is sitting in Paris. So I wanted to, the case for France is very interesting. I feel like one of the best placed territories for cinemas. 90% of cinemas reopened on the 22nd of June. And you were one of the distributors who put a film back into, well, it wasn't back in, it hadn't been released, but one of the distributors who decided to put a film into theatres, which was brave, I think, to do. Mr. Jones, Agnieszka Holland's movie that you were supposed to release just before the cinema shut down. And can you talk a little bit about that, Alexis, about your experience with that film?
Yeah, sure. That's an incredible story for us, because, well, right now I'm more confident, and we made a good choice, but that was not the case, and I was so feverish for so many months. So the story about Mr. Jones, it's an historical thriller that was in the Berliner last year. We bought it by the summer last year. The movie had a classical, track record in our local festivals in France, and from early on we had picked up the date. It would be the March 18th. So it happened to be that finally this date was 3 days after the official lockdown. So obviously I can let you imagine the shock for us, because it was the worst timing for us, because when you are cut off like 3 days just before releasing, that means you spend all your P&A, and this was our biggest release in the year. It was over 400,000 P&A euros for us, and so that would mean also zero income. So it was a very good shock for the team. We thought the company was over, actually. So we were very in expectations. After a phase of depression, we tried to think a lot and what we had to do. During the 2 months where there were no news flow for the government about the reopening, we were just like blind. We had many options of selling off the title to streamers or to pay TVs, but I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunately, but the offer was a bit low versus all what we already spent. So we said no to that. And once we had the fresh news about the reopening, so the early June, the government said the theaters would reopen on June 22. We said, okay, we're gonna bet on the day one of the reopening.
Oh, lost you. I lost you. Sorry.
Yeah, so we choose to bet on the reopen on releasing the movie on the very first day on the reopening. So obviously there was a big risk about the traffic, because we didn't know if the audience and the moviegoers would be back in theaters. But our strategy was to say, okay, what's for sure is that we'll get a much better exposure in terms of prints versus the situation before. Normally back in March, this movie should have been released over, I would say, 150 or 200 prints. But finally, on the new date, we were over 400. And the crazy story about that, it worked out. And finally, we've crossed last week the terrific mark of 1,000 cinemas that have already played the movie.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a crazy good story. And so the exposure was great, and our other approach was to say we were the only new release. Actually, there were some others, but they were smaller French movies. We were the only one to have an international profile, and all the other stuff playing in the cinemas was older movies that were already on the screens before the lockdown. So we were the fresher offer, and so as a matter of fact, we were the first new release in position, and we were number 3 at the box office globally on this first swing of releasing. And so after that, it has been a very positive spiral because we kept our position with very little drops every week, and so we passed the mark of 200,000 admissions this week, which is our biggest box office for the company in 10 years. I mean, ever since we.
Wow.
So that's a crazy story because we were very aware that it's in the middle of ashes and very complicated landscape here for the industry. Even if I must say, comparing to my neighbors, that France is in a better state for the theatrical industry because every theater has reopened except 10% more or less. The moviegoers were back on the first week. Now it's a bit stable, and the level of traffic is 1 million viewers per week, while the standard in summer is supposed to be 3 million. So you've got two way of seeing things. Either you say that's bad because like minus 70%, but in the other way you could say we managed to gather 1 million people every week in the theaters with no Hollywood offer, only with the local French dramas and comedies plus the art house segment, which is big in France, because it's not a niche in France, it's big. But yet there's no US offer, and we're still at this level. So I'm more on the full bottle side on my view.
Right. So you said 200,000 spectators, which is also Agnieszka Holland's best box office since Europa for France, I think.
Yes.
So what's that? Roughly 1.8 million euros gross, roughly. That's nice. So yeah, wow. Just to go
very nice.
To go back to Alexis' point about he was being tempted. I mean, when we spoke about this yesterday, I mean, you'd obviously paid all this money out on the P&A, and people are coming to you offering you money for the digital distribution rights. It's quite tempting. I was wanted to see what everybody else had done. I mean, Hamish, you had Calm with Horses in the cinemas when they shut. What did you end up doing with your titles? Were you tempted to flip them over into digital, or did you try to retain them? And you've also got Table, and you've got Rocks as well, which was supposed to come out in April. So what are you going to do, and what did you do?
Yeah, we had everybody we were beating them away, just all these open checkbooks, and just as like, no, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, we were on release for 5 days with Calm with Horses. We were really excited about it. Absolutely terrific Irish set thriller. And we got shut down after 5 days, and we were looking what everybody else was doing. Obviously, we could see it coming towards us, that we would be releasing, and we didn't know at that point whether we were going to lock down or not. And obviously, we were locking down a week or two behind everybody else because of our incompetent government. And so we had to release. It was too late to change our plans. So we were on release in cinemas for 5 days, and then they all got shut down with Calm with Horses. So then the question was, what do we do? We saw a lot of the studios, going very quickly to PVOD, and we just looked at things, and this was an unusual film in that no one would have criticized us pre-pandemic, I think, for going more of a day and date model on Calm with Horses, but we wanted to really get it out there, and we wanted to have a very large footprint of cinemas. We were ambitious for it, and especially in Ireland too. So that involved having mainstream exhibitors on board with an accompanying full theatrical window. So the theatres were shut down, but we had this film that we'd committed to a full window on. So we ended up going to VOD 6 weeks later at the end of April, which we felt was a kind of a respectful, happy medium, really. We didn't go straight to iTunes and etc., but there was a period, but it was still kind of somewhat live. We got the campaign going in, and then we released it again at the end of April. And then we had a really good April on the cards that we had to, our plans were thwarted on. Aside from Calm with Horses, we had a great big event cinema release, which we were very excited about, A Life on Our Planet with David Attenborough. We were broadcasting a conversation with David Attenborough and Michael Palin around the world, actually. We had over 1,100 cinemas lined up in territories around the world, and that was going to happen at the start of April. We had Rocks, which is a wonderful British gem. It's a really wonderful, fresh film that we're going to release at the start of April, and then Les Miserables, which we'd spoken about earlier, I think has come back and is still the #1 film in France for June. It's Oscar nominated, fantastic, incredibly more prescient now than it ever was. These were all big theatrical releases for us in April, and all the plans for all of those got thwarted. So Calm with Horses obviously was already out, so we reacted to that. We put it on to VOD 6 weeks later, and we're now making plans for those 3 films that I've mentioned in late summer, and we want to do ambitious theatrical releases for them again, we hope, trying to make plans in a very volatile situation, but you know, the cinemas are opening now, and we think by the time we get to these releases we should be in a good place, you know. So we want to prepare for the worst but plan for the best, and have really ambitious theatrical releases on those films. And then we did have 2 other films that, you know, in terms of what kind of plans can you make, they were a bit further down the conveyor belt, so to speak. A film called Days of Bagnall's Summer and Dating Amber, and we decided to go straight to home entertainment on those, but actually gave them theatrical releases. They were very different releases, but we worked with cinema chains. It's definitely in the case of My Days of Bagnall's Summer, to kind of eventize them and make them feel like a theatrical release and get people watching. And I think some of the cinema chains have been absolutely terrific at that. They haven't completely shut down during the lockdown period, and they really worked hard to keep themselves relevant online, you know, doing watch-along parties, just talking about film culture, talking with their audiences. And it was really terrific, actually. So we worked with these active cinema chains as well as other routes to just get a kind of a theatrical buzz going on those titles. So that's how we reacted when the lockdown happened.
Right. So Margherita, you said that you protected your title. I think you did put Mother's Instinct or Jules on to.
That was the film
that was, that was out in cinemas, wasn't it? But the rest of them you decided to protect. Is that correct?
Yes, actually we opened with Mother Instinct, and one week after it was locked down. So we just decided to shorten a little bit, as Hamish said, the VOD and window, and so the film was available on iTunes and all the other platforms after 1 month, I guess, from the release, approximately 1.5 months. And but we decided not to go straight to platforms with other films. Actually, we don't have a huge slate of film to be released, and the kind of titles we have, they really do benefit from the theatrical release also in terms of VOD exploitation. So as long as we can, we're trying to hold on and see if we can have a theatrical release for all of them. Obviously, this might be changing in the future or not, but so far we have been trying, yes, this strategy.
So just quickly from Enrico as well, just to get your did you do any VOD or digital distribution with your titles, or was it?
No, the platform in Spain for this kind of movies like Miserable or this kind of films doesn't work. At the end, the public in platforms watch US titles with faces, with mainstream movies. So Amazon, they don't want our titles. What they want is movies with 300 prints, 400 prints. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work, and the numbers are so small. So for me, it's very important, the theatrical release. I can't conceive any of my films without a theatrical release. If not, I will close. I don't make my numbers doesn't work with platforms. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Okay, so apparently I'm getting a question through. So I've got a question here from Chloe Kudasama for all of you. what are the panelists' views on films going into online festivals at the moment? Are they actively still looking at picking up films that do get accepted, or is it not a deal breaker at the moment, especially with, or is it a deal breaker with piracy and COVID? So are you still prepared to pick up films which have screened online at festivals? I don't know if anybody has any particular views, or I can just pick one of you, like we're at school. Hamish, do you have any views on that? Would you pick up a festival? Sorry, would you pick up a title that has played at a festival online already?
The opportunity hasn't come up yet, but I think we would just assess it on every single, if I saw the next Parasite online, I'd be stupid enough to ignore it. I think we're all kind of opportunistic entrepreneurs, really, entrepreneurial businesses. So I wouldn't rule anything out. We just have to be open to opportunities. None of us have a steady pipeline of studio product coming through to feed our slate. So if we find a gem, we should look at it, and we'd be silly to discount it based on it appearing online, as long as, the piracy precautions are being put in place. And even then, if it was an amazing film, I think we look at everything. If you find a gem, then you want to get involved with it.
Alexis, would you pick up a film that's already screened somewhere?
We could pick up a film, but actually for us, the problematic is that we got a quite a big stock of unreleased completed movies that usually should have been our 2020 slate, but it's gonna be released more over next year also. So actually, during the lockdown, what we did is mainly read a lot scripts to pre-buy some movies for the two next years, and that was the good time to do that, because it was calmer and it was another way of working. So we made acquisition, but three of them, we bought 3 movies, but it was three pre-buys. So obviously, right, you got the other question, which is about the shootings and the production process and the delays about that. But we didn't come across a completed movie during Cannes Online, for example, where we had a crush. And my impression for Cannes was that it was great to have this kind of rendezvous and meetings with all the sales guys. With the Zoom is a good tool for that, but yet on the offer of titles, we felt with my acquisition team that it was really different from a normal Cannes in terms of offer and type of movies we could get.
That's market screenings. I think the question here was about if a film had played in a festival with a public already. I don't know whether Margherita or Enrique, you have something to add on that subject. Were you looking at any of these online festivals to see?
Yes, for me it was a problem, because at the end I used to have films in Cannes, and this year it's true that the market was very easy, because it was very easy to watch movies in the platform, but nothing interesting. There's festivals like Cannes made movies like Les Miserables, make Parasite, and without Cannes, these movies doesn't exist. So I watch a lot of movies. I buy a couple of them, but it was more mainstream and nothing very exciting that explodes in Cannes and you make admission with it. No, so it was a good experience, but I really miss Cannes. The real Cannes. I really miss it. And there's the word of mouth in these festivals. We talk between distributors, with the press, with other festivals. And without that, this kind of movies doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Margherita?
Oh, actually, we did buy a film during the Marché. It was totally unexpected. I wasn't planning to, but then we saw this French film called Un Triomphe.
Me too.
Me too. Both bought it. Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah.
So we thought it was a good one, and then yes. So as Hamish was saying, we take the opportunity. If you see something interesting that you think it might work in your hands, that it's right for your lineup, then why not?
Yeah, I suppose the big question for filmmakers and producers is if they give their film to a film festival, not to the market, they're worried that by doing that, they're forfeiting distribution deals, I guess, because even if a film is showing in a closed space, there's a fear that it's, you know, it could be pirated or.
Yeah, let's add some. Sorry to interrupt you, Melanie. Some nuance to my answer then would be yes, it's not ideal, but if the filmmaker or the producer or sales agent is out of options, then don't think that it's the end of the world. It's not ideal, but I think if, you know, if there's a deal to be done, that shouldn't completely rule it out. But yeah, obviously, if you can explore doing other ways of doing it first, it's not ideal to have it play to the public before you've sold it.
Okay. So I've got another question here from an anonymous attendee. So how differently do you market your upcoming releases with less footfall in the cinemas than you normally do? Do you put your spend merely in social, or are you doing poster campaigns? I mean, for the people who are releasing films now, so I guess at the moment, I mean, Enrique, you might be thinking about this already.
Yes, for example, with the movie of Viggo Mortensen, I was with him today talking about that because he lives in Spain. And what I'm gonna do is we're gonna make a trailer, and before the trailer, he's gonna talk by himself, like 10 seconds, welcome the people to the cinema, and introducing his movie. That will be on the trailer. Okay, so we're gonna try to do some things a little bit different than usual, you know. Of course, the campaign, you can make a campaign of two months before or 1 month before, because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe the cinema close again, like in Catalonia last weekend. So all will be concentrated on the first week. After that, we talk with the cinemas, and we try to have some publicity for free. You know, I'm gonna make a special, as I told you, this trailer with Viggo Mortensen introducing the movie. So we try to make things very close with the theaters, and of course it's true that like Alexis, I will release the movies with more prints than before, because cinemas need movies, and today there is a very few of them. And that's it. To try to make things different and more concentrate on the date of the release. No, more than 2 months before. You know, for example, I will external campaigns. Usually, you close them 2 months ago, and this are on the street for 1 month. Here, I will concentrate more on online and these things with the theaters. No, a poster, display, trailer, etc., and to play with them.
I mean, Margherita, what will you do with Macaluso Sisters? Will you do a poster campaign or?
No, I don't think so. Actually, we usually do a lot of poster placing in theaters, but now theaters will be actually reopening with our films, and so it doesn't make any sense because there will be no theaters open. We will try to do some trailering in outdoor cinemas. And but especially we will be doing web campaign and social campaigns, stuff like that.
Right.
And as Enrique said, the more concentrated on the week of the release.
So
especially, I mean, because August in Italy doesn't make really any sense to make a poster campaign in the streets.
But Alexia, I was in Paris last week, and I can see the columns are now. It was quite nice actually, because for so long there were just the old films on the advertising slots. But I could see people were beginning to advertise their films again. I mean, you've got the Casey Affleck movie coming up. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to do a poster campaign or focus on social?
No, we're gonna replug.
My life, sorry.
We're gonna replug all the classical, ways of promoting a movie. What's at stake right now is really what's happening within the theaters, because obviously, well, you can do in theater trailering, but the traffic is very low. So we try to have some bargain and discussions with the advertising sellers to have some prices, because obviously that's not the normal level. And that's the same for in-theater postering. But outside of that, I mean, consumption is quite back. People are in the restaurant, they go out. So outdoor advertising can be an option. Rather in the street versus the metro, because the metro still now it frightens a bit people. So it's going to be outdoor in the streets, our posters. But yet, you're right when you say digital is more important because, for example, what we cannot do with in theater showing, we put it on digital and with social media.
So Hamish, and what have you done? I'm not in the UK at the moment, so what have you done with Stage Mother? Have you done...
You're not in the UK. We have done, it's amazing. I'm going to describe it to you. Basically, I've got a sandwich board and it says Stage Beauty, Stage Mother in cinemas. No, it's basically, yeah, we're not spending on outdoor physical media really because, yeah, it's so hard to, you know, the foot flow is not there in the streets in significant numbers and where people are. So we have to be as canny and targeted as we always were, and more so. There's a lot of pressure on digital, obviously, but there's radio and TV, and certainly we have a big campaign for all 3 films that we have out. Unhinged will be a really big campaign across all media. It's really just not physical media so much, posters, but yeah, cinema media is tricky because they're just reopening and it's just tricky, but we need to be canny in other ways. And, you know, we're always show people, we have to just build buzz as well. So aside from just buying media, we need to, PR is incredibly important, and innovative ways of just generating buzz and appetite for titles, which we've always done, but it's just more important than ever just to get people interested at exactly the right moment, which is the art of distribution.
I have to say, in London, it's been quite strange these last few months. When they finally stripped off all the old posters off the side of the double-deckers, it was quite weird seeing double-decker buses in London without posters on, without advertising for like the first time, I think. It was quite weird. I don't know if anybody noticed that, if you noticed that, but it was strange not to have cinema advertising.
There's another problem too, that the talent doesn't travel. In my case, every movie that I release, I bring the talent. If not, I don't release it. Because at the end, you save money like that, no, on P&A and these things. And today there's a problem with that because the talent doesn't want to travel. That is normal, no? So it's a new challenge to do Zoom, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
So I've got another question, and then I'd like to from one of the audience, and then I'd like to talk about Tenet, because I think that's a big sort of elephant in the room for all of us. So I've got a question here from Imane Lamime. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrongly. How will Venice influence your future film release choices? Do 2020 festivals have the same impact on your slate strategy? And are you all planning to attend Venice in person or San Sebastian? And that's an excellent question, because I was going to ask the same thing. So, Margherita, will you be going to Venice and San Sebastian?
I'll probably be going to Venice because I have to attend anyway some panel events for a couple of days. But if not for this, I wouldn't probably have been attending, because the small market taking place in Venice will be online, then Toronto will be coming online, and I don't really feel the need to travel to Venice, to be really, really honest.
Even as an Italian, to support the festival?
It's going to be complicated. Obviously, I love to go to Venice, so but I still don't know. I still have no ideas on of the condition of how it will be taking place. The capacity of theaters, how many theaters. So it's I don't know.
It's complicated. Yeah.
It's complicated. Yes.
Yeah. Would you have ever acquired a title out of Venice? Is it a place that you buy titles out of in the past?
Not really.
Not so much, yeah.
I mean, we had titles in competition in the past, but it was product that we pre-bought, and then was in Venice. Not really bought in Venice. I'm more attending to. I'm more buying in Toronto actually than in Venice.
So Enrique, you were saying that San Sebastian's going to be very important. You feel?
Yes. Yeah, because I talk a lot with the French sales agents, and they are all crazy to come to San Sebastian. Myself, I have, as I told you, the movie of Viggo Mortensen, and I will go with him. Viggo's going to San Sebastian too. and I think it will be important. I think it will be important. It will be important this year. And the selection, because Cannes was half Cannes, many movies from Cannes will be there. Will be the first screening, international screening, and I think will be important in Europe. Probably from the US nobody comes. Like I don't go to Toronto. I would love to go to Venice, but for personal reason I can't. But San Sebastian I think will be strong this year. Yeah.
So Alexis,
just one thing. Obviously, I was talking from the perspective of buying.
Yes.
In terms of having films selected in Venice, that's going to be very helpful, great, and important as well as San Sebastian for Enrique, obviously.
Yeah. So Alexis, last year, I think, did you go to San Sebastian for the first time? I remember when I talked to you last year, it was like the first time you were going to go to Venice or San Sebastian. I can't remember now. And are you going to go this year?
It was our first time in Venice and we loved it. And we picked up a very nice movie called Balloon that was in Horizonte.
Right.
That we plan to release by the end of this year. And so Venice, we booked our housing for this year, but without knowing exactly what's going on. Because my real question from an industry standpoint is, will I be privileged to see movies quicker if I'm there physically, or if industry screening are exactly at the same time, or if the physical screening are just a nightmare due to social distancing? Well, there's no point in being there. But I don't have a clear view about those questions right now. That's why we are just waiting,
And Hamish, I didn't come to you first this time.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I wouldn't normally attend Venice or San Sebastian, and we wouldn't usually. Actually, we usually go to the 4 major markets. So I think this is not really a pandemic question for us. To Alexis' point, in this, we often, from an acquisitions point of view, are able to screen the film almost at the same time, or certainly just afterwards as the market screening. So that would be the case there. And whilst we're encouraging people to go back to the cinema in our territory, and I want to go back to the cinema physically as soon as possible, and we just did the first physical press screenings in the yesterday in fact. I don't think I would be encouraging myself or the team for international travel at this point of the pandemic, because it just feels unnecessary as much as we would want to support these festivals.
Just a quick question. I mean, coming out of that, that was one of the questions I was going to ask, is when do you think we're all going to meet up again, like in a market?
We're all meeting up tonight.
No, but I mean, physically, when do you think is it going to be? Some people are saying Rome could be quite important now, or are we all looking at Cannes next year, or Berlin?
Berlin. I would say Berlin.
Yeah, me too.
Actually, I'll be in Rome, obviously, but I don't know who's coming.
But there's one thing I want to say, that to talk about something else. In Spain, for example, there is new case of the pandemic situation, and it's not in cinemas, it's not in theaters, it's always young people going outside, partying. In Spain, we have a lot of good beaches, and it's fun. We have a lot of things to enjoy, and all the problems now come from that, from discos, from bars, from these kind of things, no? And I think it's not, I don't know how you say in English, but they want to close the cinema, and I think it's totally wrong. Yesterday I was in a theater, and everybody wore her mask, nobody talked. You spend 1 hour and a half, and it's very difficult to get infected there, no? And all the problems come from the night, from discos, bar, etc. If they close the bar and discos, I think it will be okay.
Yeah, there's been lots of cases where people say this is open and that's closed. It's a very complex situation.
If people go more to the cinemas and discos, the problem is resolved.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. So, Hamish, I've been fielded another question for you. Then I want to talk about tenants. So stop sending me questions now. So, Hamish, how confident are you that multiplexes in the UK, such as View and the Cineworld, will be open in time for the release of Unhinged on July the 31st, which does also sort of feed into the question of Tenet, because I guess before you might have been going head to head with that, and you're not anymore. So you're going to be like the big US release. But do you think?
Well, we open in 2 weeks time, so I'm 100%, well, I'm 99%. I'm very, very confident that the cinemas will be open of significant numbers. I think we're going to be opening in just under 250 cinemas, so we'll be, you know, a saturation release within this market in the UK, open in most cinemas. So we're very confident. We're talking to the cinemas all the time, and we want to, you know, we're nearly there now. Our campaign is live. You know, we're spending money. We have a big campaign, so we're as confident as we can be outside of the unknowns of a lockdown or local lockdowns again.
Do you think VU and Cineworld will show the film on the 31st of July? Sorry to put you on the spot. If you want
I know they will. Yeah, I know they will. Yeah,
they will. Yeah. Okay, so they will hopefully open. That's good news. And sorry, you might have just answered this. You said how many screens did you say you were hoping for?
As many as possible at this stage. I think we'll be in around 230 to 250 cinemas, but it changes. I mean, it's such a volatile, it almost changes daily. You guys are probably having the same experience with this, you know, and cinemas are reacting, especially, all the time to this turbulent situation. But there are more and more cinemas opening every week and every day, actually.
In my case, for example, for Arab Blues, that is a movie that I released in Spain with 4 reprints. Today we are with 80 because the people is asking, cinemas are asking for more prints. So at the end, instead to go with 4 reprints, I will go with 80 or maybe more, you know?
So this is the thing, it's a confidence thing. We have to be confident. Everybody has to be confident. Exhibitors and distributors, we need to go into this together. And we really do need to hold hands and just be confident if we want to get this going again. And it's going to be a very difficult start, you know, for a long time. It's going to be extremely challenging. And the numbers, of course, they're not going to be there. But we have to be positive and not, you know, as we have to be responsibly cautious, obviously, to customers' health, obviously paramount. But after that, we need to be as bullish and as show people like as we ever were, really, because it's the entertainment. We're trying to get people into the cinema.
Because that's one of the things I feel in France, Alexis, you might set me straight on this, but I feel like the exhibitors and the distributors for the June 22nd opening, they did work together. I think, I might be wrong, but I got the impression it was like a sort of a united effort, like we'll open the cinemas, but you need to give us films.
Yeah, surely they did. First, there was the Federation of the Cinemas that launched this very big campaign that was called Nous irons tous au cinéma. We will go, everybody will go back to the theaters. It was a hashtag, and there was a big incitations from the exhibitors to the distributors to put this hashtag also on the posters of every film. So yeah, it was a very unified movement to try to get the people back into the theaters, and that was great. And my other feeling about Mr. Jones is that I think we built up a very strong relationship with the theaters because just before the lockdown, we didn't move our film ourselves. The lockdown just prevented us from releasing, whereas some other big players had moved previously the movie. We did not, and the same for the reopening. We were here on day one relaunching the campaign, and so this created a very strong relationship between us and the exhibitors, which makes things easier than for the booking of the upcoming titles, you know. So yeah, there's a kind of alchemy by that time.
So just quickly, because I'm staying with you, Alexis, so your next release is Casey's Light of My Life on August the 12th.
Yeah.
So you were supposed to be going head to head with Tenet. So are you relieved or are you disappointed now that Tenet has been pushed back?
It was very strange because we were on this date before them. Then they positioned themselves on this date after their several frog leaps, you know, 2 weeks after 2 weeks. But then they didn't move anymore. So we were very anxious because obviously we could not hold this date with them in front of us. The very strange situation about Tenet is that a studio would have canceled or officialized this position way before what Warner did, because they only communicated about, okay, guys, we leave this date of August the 12th, just like back 2 days ago, which is very, very late. And that brings us to this very special status of Tenet right now within the industry. I mean, everyone is so you know, everything is pending to this movie, and this very, you know, it's very heavy for I mean, for us, for exhibitors, and even for Warner, I guess, because it's way beyond the movie itself. I mean, so I was relieved because now the strategy for us on Casey Affleck's movie is to build up the movie and to expand it so as to be a kind of, you know, replacement US offer, because there's a void on this segment. Even if the movie is a bit small and art house, we in the company know how to expand such a movie. We dubbed it into French, bring it to big multiplex. So and the good news is that if Tenet just jumps again 2 weeks after and goes at the end of August, which seems to be the rumor right now, and Enrique, you said Spain, it's even confirmed, then we're okay, because market can keep the confidence, and yet we got our date clear. So
I mean, Enrique, what do you feel about this sort of reliance on Tenet, and that we're all sort of getting so sort of hot and bothered about whether it's going to come out or not? Do you think this is it maybe feeds into your what you were saying about there not being those sort of middle of the range movies, local movies that can get audiences in different territories, apart from in France, where the top 5 last week, the top 5 films apart from Scoob, they were all French movies, Summer of 85, Tout Simplement Noir, Divorce Club. They're like comedies, but they got people through the door. I mean, what's your feeling? Do you think this could have a long-term impact on how spectators go to the movies, the sorts of movies they want to do, or do you think we just need Tenet to come out?
No, we need Tenet, and we need other ones, no? Because at the end, when you go to the cinema, that's why I think it's so important, the release next week in Spain of Santiago Segura. Because when you go to the cinema, you see trailers from other films, you see posters from other films, and at the end, if you go there, you saw the poster and you said, this movie looks good, I will watch it next week, no? So it's important. In Spain, we're gonna try to do, we have a meeting 2 days ago between all the sector, and we're gonna try to release 2 strong movies every week between all of us, you know, to have every week to have 2 strong movies that the audience can saw the trailer, watch the poster, and create this necessity to go to watch the film, no? Of course, Tenet is important. Tenet is important, Mulan is important, but I think we have to work more on cinema and on the European cinema, because at the end, in a country like Spain, that 80% of the cinema is American or from the US, it's not good. It's not good. You see the example of France, the example of Alexis, and at the end, it's the independent sector that saved the industry in France. It's the independent sector, because the majors move the titles, move these things. At the end, you can count on them. You have to count on your own industry, no? And this is very important. It's very important. And I think this is a lesson that we can have from this pandemic, that we have to work more, cinemas, producer, the states on production on European films.
Yeah, I've got 2 minutes left. So Margherita, do you have a feeling about this? Do you think they could have an impact later on for production in Italy, or people thinking we have to make our own? I mean, Italy's always had a great culture of making its own films. Do you think it would spur you to do it again? To you know, there was all this sort of comedies and blockbusters that were the hits every year. Do you think it will change?
I see the point of Enrique, actually, and I still think that the opening with Tenet would have been a strong driving force for the opening. So I still hope it will happen end of August. And actually, it could be a good alternative to propose some strong Italian blockbuster to do that.
And Hamish?
As an impact on the production, I can't say at the moment. I can foresee anything strong. I mean, we already have a strong assets in production for Italian comedies, or not only comedies, also art house films. So not sure of the impact.
Yeah. And Hamish, just finally, do you think that this will? It's been so striking to me what's happened in France. Do you think it will spur production houses in the UK to? It's a difficult time. There's not much money around, but
I hope so. I'm pessimistic about that long term. No, it's always, you know, in the UK, I hope so. God, you know, I really would love a vibrant, independent market for foreign language films, British local hits. We see that so, you know, so envious of those successes in France particularly, but also all around the world. But we're so beholden to Hollywood, necessarily because of not necessarily, quite the opposite, because of the language. We're beholden to that. We have that appetite for that product there, and it becomes completely, you know, homogeneic, if that's the word. I think I just made that up. But yeah, it's not good for anybody to be reliant purely on studio tentpoles. And so if there can be more audiences come for a variety of films, that would be great. But I don't think this particular tragic situation is going to bring that about long term. We're just trying to figure it out at the moment. We're trying to survive this period and then hopefully thrive. But I don't know when that next chapter will come. It's just about survival right now. We're trying to survive as a company. We want the cinemas to exist as well. And we want the whole ecosystem to be there. But yeah, an ecosystem that's reliant on just a few very similar Hollywood tentpoles is not healthy, and that has not been healthy for the past few years. So it would be great if that changed for everybody, the studios included. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know.
I'm just going to unmute myself. Unfortunately, someone's decided to trim their hedge right beside where I'm sitting, and I've left my window open, so it's a bit noisy. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting talking to all of you, and you know, hearing about all your different ways in which you're releasing your films, because the work you're doing is so important in terms of getting films in front of audiences. So it's fascinating to hear all the different strategies you're using, and I'd love to carry on talking, but we've come to the end of our time. So thank you so much, Hamish and Margherita, Enrique and Alexis, and you know, all the best with the coming months and getting films into cinemas.
And Alexis, Alexis,
congratulations.
Congratulations that you make. No, I want to congratulate Alexis.
Oh,
that,
thank you.
Your movie works and you save your company. I'm so happy.
I hope it will be the case for everybody.
Yes.
And finally, this replay of this conversation will be available on ScreenDaily later on today, and be sitting on the site if people want to go back and listen to the different conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.